Hey guys, this is Tech Howdy. I welcome you to another video tutorial where we are building this CMS application using ASP.NET Core 3 and Angular 10. In the last video tutorial, we were working on the profile controller. We are working on displaying the views that are needed to display the user's profile, the activity log, and the security view where the user can change their passwords. So we will continue working on the profile controller. If you haven't watched the part 1 of creating the admin profile view, I recommend you to watch that before you watch this part. So let's go ahead and start working or continue working on the profile controller. So here if you look at the profile controller, we have these three views, but we haven't created these views inside the view folder. So we'll go ahead and add the required views inside the profile folder. We have already created the folder at the very beginning of this tutorial series when we were working on the views folder. Now inside the views folder, like the account folder, I'm going to create a custom view start file which will be calling a custom layout. So I'll go ahead and add this new file. This is a razor view start file, so I will select this and add it in the profile folder. Now if you look at the application that we are in the admin panel, the home page is displaying these stats cards that you see on top over here, but other pages don't display it. We might go ahead and create some other pages in our project going forward in this video tutorial series where we will be using this similar layout of cards on certain pages, but we don't need to show these cards on profile or on user pages. Therefore, where we don't need to show these cards, we would have to hide these cards using some jQuery, JavaScript or CSS. But since we are working with Razor, we can create a view start file and define a custom layout file that can be used in the profile view. So here I will call this custom layout file as content layout. So I will change this layout to reference the content layout.cshtml file, which I'm going to add to the shared folder. So let's go ahead and add it over here, new file, and let's add a layout file. Let's call this as underscore content layout and let's hit new. Now this underscore content layout file is created here. Underscore basically means that this particular file is a partial view. So we are going to go ahead and clean up this content layout and replace the content layout code with our Razor code that I have already created for the content layout of pages in the admin panel. So here I have replaced the Razor syntax with the custom layout that I have already created. Here for the meta title, meta description and author, I have replaced these values from the site-wide setting class, and the site-wide setting class is now part of the admin base view model. So I have imported the uh, admin base view model in this particular Razor view using the model attribute over here and importing the model service.admin base view model. So if we go to the admin base view class, you can see that site-wide settings is part of admin base view model. Therefore, in the content layout, when you want to access it, you have to use the model.site-wide setting dot the property name to access any property name inside site-wide setting. So if you're not familiar with how you are supposed to use properties of Razor syntax, I recommend you read the documentation because we are not going to teach you that in this particular tutorial. We are just working on the CMS application. So we are assuming you already are familiar with Razor syntax. Therefore, this is what you would be using in the content layout file. Now we have referenced this content layout file in the view start of the profile controller view. That means that when the profile, any view in the profile controller is loaded, it will use this content layout to display on the UI any objects or components that we are going to display. Now we would also want to go ahead and create the other views that we have, which is the security and activity view inside the profile along with the index view. So let's go ahead and add these views. So we'll add Razor view for index. Let's add it. let's add another view for activity. So I'm going to create a razor view for activity. And finally, we would need another view for security. So now we have all these three views that we need inside the profile controller that have been created. Now the next thing that we would want to do in this sec, uh, index view, first we'll start with the index view. Let's clean up this comment and start adding the required content inside this view. So here in the index.cshtml file of the profile controller, which is responsible to display the user profile details, and also in the profile view, the user can go ahead and also, if I go to the profile view here, the user can also update the user's profile on the same view itself. And to update the user's profile, we will be making use of the add user profile model that we have created. In the admin base view model, we have access to the add user model class. So we will need that to map over the properties to the add user model. Now, if we go back to the index.cshtml file, here is the initial code that we would need in the index.cshtml file. Let's go to the top here. I have added the title to the page. Then I have imported the admin base view model. Here I have created a section to load the stylings or CSS style, which is specific only to this view. So these style will be loaded in this view, not on all the views in your application. Therefore, we are making use of the section style script. Inside the section styles tag, we can add all the styles that we need to load only on this specific view. Now here in the styles, we have added a reference to chosen min.css. Now chosen is a JavaScript library that we use for drop downs or to use to sort drop down values. So in this particular user profile detail view, you will see that I have used certain drop downs here, like for gender, for country, and in this drop down I have the option to search the values by just typing certain characters, and the values are then displayed, so I don't have to go through the entire list. Similarly, if I go to the country drop down, if I type in CA, then I will get a list of countries that have the characters CA in their names. So this searching feature and this drop down is created by chosen. Chosen is a JavaScript library that we are going to use in this project. I'll leave the link in the video description so you can read the documentation on chosen. Here is the official website for chosen. It's open source, and here are some examples on the chosen libraries website how you can use this library to enhance your UI or your drop downs. So you can read through the documentation, and if you want to change anything in the UI, you can implement it accordingly following this documentation. So here in the project, we are going to make use of this library. Also, we will make use of jQuery UnObtrusive library, and that will be used for validating the inputs in our forms that we are going to create. Now for Angular, we have the Angular Forms reactive library from RxJS, where when the user tries to type anything, we can show the errors immediately to the user. But here we will make use of the jQuery unobtrusive library. So in case if I'm trying to type or submit the form and then I try to save this, you will see that there are some errors that are being displayed to the fields which are required. Now these errors are displayed by the jQuery unobtrusive library, and so this library is also open source, and you can find the link in the video description. I'll add the link, and you can read the documentation on how to use the library. But in this project. I have used it, so I will be showing you how to use it and how to validate the inputs in your form. We'll also be using the date time picker from jQuery UI to implement this calendar dropdown for the uh, date time selection, and that should be it for the JavaScript libraries that we are going to use in this specific UI. So let's go back to the user profile index view, and here inside the section styles I have also added certain custom CSS styling for the uh, input elements on the form and inside the div tag, so you can accordingly change it according to your requirement. So here we have the entire form that is displayed. We have the edit user form, which is basically the form which the user uses to change or update their details or user profile details, and once they have updated their details, they can click the save changes button, and then a request will be sent to the backend where all the details of the users will be updated. So if we try to click this and try to update the details, the user will be asked for a password, and if they cannot submit the correct password, then the details will not be updated. So we will go back now to the index.cs HTML file. Here in the elements I have used the Razor syntax. If you are not familiar with Razor syntax, I recommend you to read the Microsoft documentation on ASP.NET Core MVC, because this tutorial we are not teaching you any Razor syntax, assuming that you already know Razor syntax, and we are building this particular CMS application using ASP.NET Core and Angular. So here is the HTML code for the form, and if we scroll down to the bottom, we have a section for the JavaScripts that we are going to load. So here we are going to load the chosen JavaScript. We already have installed the Sweet Alert of pop-up JavaScript. We are going to create a custom JavaScript file for our profile loading, and it will contain all the required methods that we are going, or custom methods that we are going to implement of inside this profile.js file. Now we are going to create a partial view to load all the validation scripts that we are going to use. As explained, we are going to use jQuery UnObtrusive for validation of the input tags or for the validation of our form. So all the scripts related to the jQuery validation, we will add them inside a partial view and then load it over here. So I have added these scripts in the partial view because we will be using these in multiple views and multiple forms. So we can just create a partial view and then import that partial view in the required CSHTML file where we need them. So now we have added a script tag here to write some custom JavaScript or jQuery that we will be using to call the backend code, and we will start working and implementing this code now. So first of all, let's go ahead and install the chosen library because we need that, and the jQuery validation scripts that are needed for this particular view that we are working on. So the first library that we are going to install is jQuery UI. As I showed you in the demo, that we will use it for the date time picker that we are going to create. So this date time picker will be used in our form. So in order to use it, we need to add the jQuery UI library. You can also use some other library if you are familiar with that particular library. We have date picker available in Bootstrap 4 as well. So you can use or add that library, or you can use some other library that you are familiar working with. But in this project, we are using jQuery UI. It's open source and the latest stable version is 1.12.1. So we'll go back to the project. For the package manager in the ASP.NET Core project, we are using library manager. So libman.json file contains all the references to the packages that we have installed in this project. So I will go ahead and open the terminal of the project. So go to tools and then open the project in terminal. Now I will type in the command to install the jQuery UI library. So the command would be libman install uh, jQuery UI at the version that I want to install, and then hit enter. Now the uh, installer libman installer is asking me where I need to install this library. I want to install it in the default location, which is in the lib folder, and create a folder for jQuery UI. So I'll hit enter. So all the required files are being downloaded, and now we have installed jQuery UI. So if we look at the libman file, here we should see a reference for jQuery UI. Also, we should be able to see the jQuery UI folder. See, the reference is added. The jQuery UI folder inside the root lib folder. Here we have a folder for jQuery UI, and it contains all the scripts that we have added. Now let's go and install the other library that we need. So we would need to install the chosen library as well. So let's go ahead and install chosen so that we can make use of the drop downs in our form. So I'll go back to the terminal. So here I'm going to install libman install and type chosen, the name of the library, and I will install the version 1.8.7, which is the latest stable version. You can install any specific version that you like by specifying the version number after the @ symbol, and then hit enter. And now we will be asked for the location. We will leave it as the default location, and then the chosen library is now installed in our project. Now the other library that we would need is jQuery validation library. So these are couple of libraries that we would need to install. So let's go ahead and install them. First we will clear the terminal, and now let's go ahead and install the jQuery validation library. So we'll need to install 3 packages. So the first package that we need is libman install jQuery validate at 1.19.1. So the version number that I have used here is the version number that I have installed in the finished project. So in case if you need to install or want to install the latest version or the latest available stable version, you can go ahead and install it. For now, I'm going to use the following versions. If you don't know which version you want to use, you can remove the version number and this @ symbol, and the most latest version will be installed. So I'll leave it like this, hit enter, and the files will be downloaded and it will be installed. The second library I would need for jQuery validation will be the jQuery Ajax UnObtrusive. So let's go ahead and add it. Enter, and then hit enter again. So the files are being downloaded, and finally I would also need to install the non-Ajax version of the jQuery validate unobtrusive. So let's go ahead and add it. All these commands that we have used, I will provide these commands in the video description, so you can copy them and you can paste them in the terminal to install the libraries. So I'll hit enter, and the library is now installed. So we are done with installing the required libraries uh, that we need for this particular UI that we are creating for displaying the user's profile details. Now the next thing that we want to do is go ahead and the profile.js file that will hold all the custom JavaScript methods that we are going to code in this particular UI, and we are going to store it inside the account folder. So account folder is inside custom JS admin, and here we are going to create a folder. We will call this folder as account. So let's go ahead and add it. Here in the account folder, I'm going to add a file. I'll call this as profile.js. So go to web, JavaScript file. I'll call this profile. So we will implement all the methods here that we need. Now let's go back to the index view. Now the next thing that we would need is the validation script partial view, which holds all the jQuery validation libraries. So let's copy this name and then go to the shared view. And here inside the shared view, I'm going to create this partial view that will be shared across multiple views in our application. So let's create a razor view, call this underscore validation scripts partial and hit new. So this will be created now. We don't need the comments, so let's get rid of it. So here we will add the references to the JavaScript libraries that we are going to import into the views. Here for the development version, we will use the non-minified version of the file, and for the non-development version, we will use the minified version of the file. So here I've added another environment, which is production. But if you don't have a production environment, you don't need to add this particular uh, reference. If you have multiple environments, then you can create the references accordingly. Like I could create one for staging and so on. But if you don't have multiple environments, all you would need is the development and non-development options. So that should be it for this file. So I'll leave it as it is. Now I'll save it and I will close this. We don't need to edit this file uh, anymore. So we have added the reference to validation script partial. So all the required libraries and references have been added. The CSS styling for this particular uh, form also has been done, and we have added some custom styling for the chosen container, which is basically the drop down that is created by chosen. So if we go back and view the drop downs in the chosen library, if you don't apply any styling, the default look of the drop down will be like this. So to make it a little prettier, I have added some custom styling. And as mentioned earlier, that if you want to edit the styling for the drop down, you can do that in the style section of this view. So this should be it for this video tutorial, where we have installed the required libraries. Now only thing that is remaining is to implement the logic in our application or in this view, and we need to call the methods that would be needed to update the user's profile. So we are going to create that. So this profile video tutorial, or the admin profile view video tutorial, it's going to be lengthy with multiple parts in it, because we cannot finish the entire implementation in 2 video tutorials. So in the next part, let's work on the JavaScript file that we created, profile.js, and implement all the required methods. Also, we would have to create a country service, because the chosen dropdown would need a list of uh, objects that it needs to display here. So we're going to display a list of countries, and we need to make sure we have a list of countries that we can send to the chosen dropdown, and it can display it for us. So we need to create a service for that as well. We will create a country service. We will do that in the next video tutorial. I will show you in step by step how to do it. So if you have any questions, use the comment section. Please do not forget to like and subscribe our channel Tech Howdy. The code for this video tutorial will be provided in the video description, and it's available in our DevOps repo. Thank you.